There seems to be much more of a move towards localism in brewing in Britain.
Absolutely agree with you. People love local bread, local cheese. Good heavens, even in England now we have people drinking local wines. But there's a real return to people wanting local beers. But it has to be a story, I think, of provenance. People want to know where the hops come from that go into the beer, and more people are getting interested in where the barley comes from that also goes into their beer. People, I think, care what happens in their community. People care about where their foodstuffs come from. And in beer, there's this great sort of from the grain or from the hop to the glass story.
And in particular, one family, the Knight family, who were the preeminent hop growers in the area. And interestingly, at the time, you always did something else other than growing hops. You could never rely on hops on its own because the income wasn't there, and also it was a very intense period of activity. So they were brewers. They had Farnham Brewery, which is kind of logical, but they also had, interestingly, the bank. And in fact, the children would be very involved in hop picking, and the school term would be delayed in the Farnham area by a couple of weeks, so the children could finish the hop picking. So they had got their priorities right. You've got some very grand houses, and nearly all of those were built off the back of money from hops primarily. And in the from mid 1750s through to 1850, Farnham was one of the preeminent hop growing areas in the country.
We are still able to grow a traditional English crop, which is the Fuggles hop, which went out of favour, but has now starting to come back in again. And we managed to hang on in there, and we didn't change our production to a more alpha type lager hop. So there's always been somewhere in the country a local brewery wanting a Fuggles hop. So at times things have been tight, but we've managed to survive. I'm excited to say that we're almost in partnership with the Hogs Back Brewery, and they are a local brewery to us who obviously are expanding, which is nice to know. The growth and the prevalence of CAMRA, the Campaign for Real Ale, is remarkable, and people now no longer think of them as rather wacky, but people want craft beers and craft lagers, and they want a good quaffing ale that a lot of these breweries seem to be able to produce very, very well, and they want English hops in them. Then eventually we get them sampled, so we'll look at the alpha acids from the beginning of the crop to the end of the crop and see if it's changed. But I think what we're really looking at is the quality of, almost the visual quality of it. And we funny enough, no matter what happens throughout the year in terms of weather, we always end up picking at roughly the same day. So we are very, very weather dependent. So had we been here in say the first week of Wimbledon, it was baking hot. There was no grass here. It was just barren. The only green thing on the whole of the estate were hops, because their roots are so deep. Their roots go out, they go down, and they're picking up all the moisture. Okay, we work in pockets, and a pocket is about 90 kilos. We're not very helpful to Rupert because a pocket is a big cigar-shaped, we'll show you some in a minute, and they're very unwieldy. But our yields can vary. From 2 years ago we had an incredibly poor year. It was very thin hops, very dry, and we got 72 pockets. A really good year, we got 125 pockets. So it's a huge variance.
Clearly there's as you might put it, a renaissance in interest in hops and what they can do and what they can bring to a pint of beer. I think brewers here in this country are quite keen to use hops from wherever they come from. There's been an actual increase in the use of American hops. I think conversely, if we produce good quality hops, the fact that they're Fuggles classic British varieties are in demand overseas. It's a global economy as hops go. Brewers are quite, what's the word, promiscuous when it comes to their use of hops. Whatever they think is best, most flavorful, they will go to any part of the world in order to acquire those. The UK, the English hops that are produced are in demand globally as much as American hops or German hops are coming here.
We have the first choice of all of Bill's hops. So the hop merchant will come to us and Miles will go through and say, I'll have those five, I'll have those five, and I'll have those five, based on. And I was saying to him, when I heard Bill said, well, actually, we find some of the hops are, at the beginning, a little underripe, and at the end they're a bit overripe. I said to Miles, Right, so we do get the bit in the middle, don't we?
The main one I'm looking forward to is the Farnham White Vine, just because it hasn't been grown in 100 years or so. Precursor of Golding, so we're not exactly sure what we're going to get with it yet. So that's really exciting. So we're probably going to start doing that probably October time. So either harvest, when we know what we've got with the actual hops, what bitterness, etc. We'll start getting that in the brew plan. So brewed, available by the end of the year, starts the next. So that should be really exciting. So.
And is it exciting for a brewer to be brewing with a hop that you're not aware of the characteristics of?
It is, but it's a bit frightening as well because obviously we're hoping and we believe it's going to be a fantastic beer and it's going to have a really, really good aroma. But again, there's nothing to compare it against. There's no white vine in the marketplace. So we look at some of the better Goldings and we think, well, maybe that's the sort of aroma we're going to get on a beer. In addition, with a Cascade that are sort of just behind us here, UK Cascade, which is very big in the US, that's very exciting as well. So we're looking potentially doing one. We're going to start adding it to a lager. That'll be fantastic. The other thing we're going to look to do is we're going to be potentially doing an IPA, and that will be the aroma hop in it.
So Tess, you lived in Tonga for some years, is that right?
Yes, I did. I grew up here.
Okay.
I lived actually just down the road.
And how important is the brewery to the area?
It's so important. Everybody knows about it. You drive past to get to the main road, so it's kind of very visual. But yeah, it's very important. My dad drank it a lot growing up, so I know about it. Probably one of the first beers I drank was from Hogs Back Brewery, which is quite nice.
How important was the white vine hop to Farnham?
Well, for a while it was the most important industry or agricultural industry in the Farnham area, and it generated a lot of wealth for Farnham. And then over time it was a more difficult hop to grow, and it was more prone to various diseases, and so other hops overtook them. And by the middle of the 19th century, white vine had started to decline. It was a precursor actually to Goldings, which is, along with Fuggles, is one of the two great English hops. The white vine was taken down to Canterbury, where it became the Canterbury white vine, and then from there Mr. Goldings got hold of it and developed a variety which became Goldings, East Kent Goldings, and then that travelled around the world. We are expecting therefore some of that character, but what we noticed last year when we were testing the first growth was we were getting quite a peppery character as well, which was a little distinctive, and maybe, just maybe, part of what makes this area, this terroir, different from some others. So it's early days, we'll have to see.
There's a lot of goodwill for the return of hop picking to the area, is that correct?
Oh, it's been fantastic for us because people will just stop and they look at the hop garden, and then it brings back memories. I mean, you have to be of a certain age to remember the last time hops were grown in this area at all. Other than Putnam, all hop gardens had disappeared by the 1980s. Nothing. And people do remember picking hops, and you can tell from the way they talk. There's a real warmth and fondness for the industry, and a real sense that we have done something special in bringing hops back, albeit on a small scale, to Farnham. I mean, we can actually Farnham is over there. It is two miles away, and Badshot Lee, which is where the white vine originated, Mr. Williams developed it in. Mr. Peckham Williams developed it in 1765, so it's 250 years old this year, and that was about a mile that way. That is how local it is. And the brewery, of course, is 100 yards that way.